Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Grand France Wine Cruise, a one-time only French wine cruise exploring the renowned wine regions of France for a whole month at Expedia Cruises. And before we get into this wonderful presentation, we just want to run through a few housekeeping items. And so for those who may be having any tech troubles, typically we think that logging in and out usually does the trick. If you do want to adjust your view, whether you want to see this presentation bigger or see us smaller, there's a little button at the top that you can adjust that with. If you're on a web browser, however, you might not be able to do so. For those who might or want to use closed captioning, we do have that option here today. And then for any questions that you might have, feel free to submit these questions in the Q&A box below. We will be answering questions at the end of the presentation, but we will definitely watch out for them. And then in the event that you do want to share this presentation with your friends and family, we will be sending you this recording, as this will be recorded, to you within the next 24 hours. And so for those of you who have joined our Seven Seas Club, thank you for joining us and thank you for trusting us with your vacation experiences. For those of you who are new, thank you for joining us today. And we just want to take a couple of minutes to tell you about us. Expedia Cruises Center, Expedia Cruises is your full service travel agency that allows you to book your dream air, land, and sea vacation however you want to book. You can click online, call one of our expert vacation consultants, as well as schedule a visit as well, as we are in your neighborhood. And so finally, this is our picture of all of us. We are in your neighborhood. We are not just somebody in the internet, and we are more than a trusted big name in travel. We are your travel experts, and these are your neighbors. We are, because we are your neighbors, we do have expertise in figuring out how to get you, for this trip to Avignon or Chalon-sur-Saône or even Paris from your local hometown. So that said, we do have our brand promise, and this is our brand promise. It is advice you can trust, the best choice and prices. We do have Expedia Extra, so whether they're onboard cash credits or reduced deposit, there is something for everyone. We definitely are more than cruises. We do sell vacation, so whether you're looking for a land vacation, a sea vacation, or just looking to travel via air, our vacation consultants can help you with that. And finally, we are always here for you. Whether you need to call, click, or just visit, again, we are available for you when you need it. And with that, I am going to pass it over to KK, who will tell us all about the wonderful things of this one amazing journey.
Well, thank you so much, Wendy. We are very excited to welcome you to Grand France. And for those of you who are of the wine enthusiasts, I would just encourage you to take that glass of wine right now and sip and savor as we journey through France. There is so much to talk about for this particular voyage. We're just going to try to get all through it right away for you and get you excited to join us on this unique one-time only journey. The first thing that I just want to share with you is our choice of selecting AmaWaterways for the cruise line that we have for this journey. Why Ama? Well, quite frankly, we can place our wine cruises on any river ship, but we know that our discriminating wine cruise guests expect exceptional cuisine and a higher level of service. AmaWaterways delivers that and so much more. As members of La Chaîne de Retisseurs, an international gastronomic society, which, by the way, is by invitation only, AmaWaterways continues to evolve and pairs perfectly with the excellent wines we bring on board. So let's explore this one-time experience. This is a 28-night cruise, and it's a combination of 4 7-night cruises featuring the opportunity for 28 wine events. You'll experience wines from 6 wine regions: Loire Valley, Champagne, Bordeaux, Burgundy, Rhône, and Alsace. I'm excited already. We'll start in Bordeaux, then seamlessly transition to sail round trip from Paris on the Seine. And then that, of course, goes all the way out to Le Havre and the Normandy beaches. And then we'll venture for 14 days southbound on the Saône and the Rhone rivers, and 7 days going in each direction, as there are just so many things to see in that particular region, never repeating a port. So this is very exciting. As you can see, we are going to cover France and all the regions and tasting it, exploring it in person. It's so different than if you were to just look at it and taste the wines from home. This will truly immerse you. And to guide us through this wonderful adventure, I am most excited to introduce to you our famous, amazing wine authority. He's the most smart person I know when it comes to wine. It's just incredible. Paul Wagner is the wine instructor at Napa Valley College, and he founded Balzac Communications. It's a marketing company specializing in wines all over the world. Paul is as fascinated with history as he is with wine, and always has a story. I think one of the most fun things, having personally traveled with Paul, is that he can speak to all of us no matter where we are in our wine journey. So whether you be the true wine enthusiast or a novice like I was the first time I sailed with Paul, he can bring it right to your level. And of course, he has all these wonderful friends who are wine experts as well, who he's going to bring along. So Paul, welcome to today's event. Thank you for sharing. And would you like to maybe introduce all your friends who are sailing with you on this great journey?
Sure. Thanks, KK. Great to see you again, as always. We have 4 spectacular co-hosts for this cruise. The first one is Ray Isle, who's editor for Food and Wine magazine, nominated for the James Beard Award twice for the best wine writer in America. Really knows his stuff, a wonderful guy, often appears on NPR and television and all the rest. So he's handling that section in Bordeaux. And then on the Seine, when we go to Paris, my co-host will be Sarah Schneider, a dear old friend of mine. We shouldn't say she's old, but she's very nice. And she has been the wine writer for Sunset Magazine for many, many years. Then she was the wine writer for the Robb Report. So she kind of spans a wide spectrum of wines. And the last time I talked to her was just a couple of days ago, when she was talking to one of the really wonderful, rare champagne houses about having someone join us for an evening of wine tasting of their champagnes on board. So that would be pretty great. Number 3 is Tim Gazer, one of my best friends, a master sommelier, and also someone who has a master's degree in classical trumpet. Wonderful fun to talk about wine, and he is an absolute genius when it comes to tasting wines. If you've ever wanted to meet someone to really talk you through every of the tiniest details of tasting wine, Tim is your guy. He's in the process of getting a book published just on tasting wine. It's hundreds of pages long, but he starts you at the very beginning of how do you pick up the glass? And should you swirl the wine, all the way to really interesting things like which way your eyes move when you're thinking about the wine indicate flavors you may detect. Really wild and wonderful stuff. And then the last one, Scott Harper, also a master sommelier and based in Louisville, Kentucky. He is also a bourbon expert. Wonderful guy who, again, if you think all master sommeliers are kind of nerdy and geeky, Scott actually played football in college. So he brings a really relaxed, fun way of talking about wine. And he is part owner and manager of a series of spectacular restaurants in the Louisville area. So he also has that really good service mentality as well. So, but 4 really rock stars in terms of wine people. Not only do they really know what they're talking about, but they really know how to talk to a person, whether they be an expert or whether they be a novice about the world of wine.
Well, and I so love that. And of course, we are fortunate enough that you are going to join us for the entire voyage.
I am. Yep.
So exciting.
Yep.
Well, this is really exciting for those of you who don't know, as I really didn't when I first started exploring the world of wine. There are not very many master somms in the world, are there?
Right, only about 270,
and we have 2 of them on the
and most of them are in the U.S. About 170 are in the U.S.
Wow.
And my company actually for years ran we were the administrative offices for the Court of Master Sommelier. So I know an awful lot of them. And one of the things I've been able to do for this cruise is pick my favorite ones. So we've got Tim and Scott on board.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for that. And let's talk a little bit about the Grand France cruise itself, because not only do we explore amazing destinations throughout France, but there are so many perks. There are so many amenities that come along with it. So you're going to see that you're going to have an exclusive wine program with special dinners and tastings, the hosts that we just talked about. There's complimentary gratuities. We have even included the transfers in between the vessels to make it very, very seamless. For example, the TGVs, they're going to make sure that all the luggage goes ahead and we seamlessly kind of transfer between Bordeaux and Paris, things like that. Really wonderful special inclusion is the laundry, because of course, if you're going to be away for 28 days, it's kind of nice perk to have along. And of course, we have the unlimited complimentary wine and beer with lunch and dinner, in addition to our wonderful program. We have the sip and sail cocktail hours. There's just, again, so much. You can see it all there on the screen. One of the things that I love to highlight, of course, are the shore excursions, the included shore excursions every single day. And if you can imagine that on this particular voyage, there's going to be 22 wine themed shore excursions. So every single day, you're going to have the wonderful opportunity to make a selection of excursions. One of the many things that I love about Ama, because there's quite a few, but one of the many things is I love the fact that for every single excursion, there are 3 levels of walking. So you have your average walkers, your active walkers, and then you have something called the gentle walkers. And with this, what happens is that the groups become very, very small, very intimate, so that you can really hear the guide. They use the quiet boxes so that you can always hear what's going on. But that sense that you're not feeling pushed by those who maybe are more active, or that you're feeling like you need to keep up. It just changes the whole way that you experience things. So of course, this is one of the features. The other that I love too is the fact that you're going to have options of wine excursions and maybe other history excursions. Maybe there's culture, there's culinary, lots of different opportunities. And it's very fluid. So let's say that one morning you wake up and you change your mind of what you'd like to do. It's very simple to go down to the front desk and say, you know what, I was going to do this, but I'd like to do that instead. And then just change your tickets and move on. So it's a wonderful program. And last feature of this that I quickly want to mention is AmaWaterways is the only river cruise company I know of who hires more guides than what they need always, just to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to experience it at their pace. It's really a great, great program. And of course, we talked about those little extras that are going to make this truly spectacular. Grand France guests receive over $2,100 in value add. And what does that mean? That means that that extra perk of the laundry, those included transfers that can be quite expensive, those are all included. Your gratuities, not only to your cruise staff, but even to the staff who are hosting the tours and the drivers, the motor coaches, and of course, those exclusive shore excursions that we talked about. So a great addition to the wonderful value that is included in this wine cruise. Of course, we are going to be sailing the intimate ships of AmaWaterways that are sister ships. So the Ama Dolce, the Ama Lira, and the Amacello. What's wonderful about having sister ships like this is the fact that you are going to have the same stateroom number all the way through. So if your room number is 201 on the first segment, it's going to be 201 for the entire cruise. So that makes it very, very simple and easy to remember. And of course, they're lovely, well-appointed ships. I'm very excited to say that I'll even be sailing on one again next month. I can't wait, and I'm excited for you. So let's walk through the itinerary. I'm going to take this a little bit, maybe segment by segment, just because there's so much to talk about. And I'm going to invite Paul to come along and talk to us about the wine experience that's specific for that particular region. So we're going to start this cruise in Bordeaux. Bordeaux, of course, we're going to have the 3 rivers that go all the way out to the estuary. And you'll see there that we're going to be traveling round trip from Bordeaux. So on this particular voyage, Paul, can you walk us through this wine experience that we'll have there?
Yeah, there's just not, there's no place you can have as much fun as Bordeaux when it comes to wine. We start in Bordeaux. There is the Cité du Vin, the famous wine museum. Right, we'll dock within, walking distance of that, which is spectacular. We cruise up, and the greatest red wines in the world, it could be argued, come from Bordeaux. We will dock in Pauillac, which is the home of three of the first growths: Chateau Latour, Chateau Lafite Rothschild, Chateau Mouton Rothschild. I don't know if they'll actually be out in front waving to us when we sail by, but the properties are right there, and we will have the opportunity to visit some great chateaus there. And then, of course, on the other side, what wine geeks call the right bank, we'll also go to Saint-Emilion, which the vineyards themselves are so beautiful. They are a UNESCO World Heritage Site. These are tiny producers. Whereas in the Médoc, you might see people producing 15, 20, 30,000, 50,000 cases of wine for a big producer. In Saint-Emilion, it's 1,000 cases, 3,000 cases. So tiny little producers, really little jewels. And of course, that the town of Saint-Emilion, with his church built up on top of the hill there, is just spectacular. And then we have Sauternes. We go to Carillac, where they make some of the greatest dessert wines in the world. But I want to point out that we stop in Blaye. And a lot of folks, even wine experts, may look at Blaye and say, why the heck are you stopping in Blaye? This is my favorite port in Bordeaux in terms of really having a fun adventure. It's the wine festival of Blaye. There are probably 100 different wineries, all from that region, again, just across the river from Bordeaux. So same kind of wines, far less expensive. But this is the local village wine festival. It's held in an old fort called the Citadel, and they take over a few rooms. They have people serving shellfish and little snacks, but everyone from Blaye is there: grandparents, children, moms and dads with strollers, and grandparents, and they're all walking around tasting the wines, and they're literally buying their wine for the year. So they have volunteer runners who collect cases of wine and they load them up in the car. Although my favorite scene at one of these was to see one of the little children, one of the little toddlers, a little girl, booted out of her stroller because dad really wanted to make sure he got a case of the rosé they were tasting. And he put the rosé in the stroller and off they went, having bought a case of rosé that they're going to drink for the rest of the year. So participating in that, very different than the white towel over your arm sommelier with the test de vin around his neck. This is all really fun family, a real glimpse into the way people live in France. So all of that happening in Bordeaux.
That's awesome. And I think to give us a visual of some of the things that Paul talked about when we visit the chateaus, and we're going to go, of course, through Saint-Emilion with those UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Actually, the village and the wineries, as Paul mentioned, are UNESCO World Heritage Sites. La Cité du Vin, the wonderful new, there's also the museum there. Of course, just the town of Bordeaux itself is simply stunning, so rich in history of all the things that we can see. And it culminates, or combines, I should really say, with these wonderful wine experiences that Paul was talking about. So as we go throughout this particular week, we're going to savor, we're going to taste, we're going to explore all these fascinating sites. And that, of course, brings us to our second segment. Our second segment is called The Impressions of the Seine in Paris. We are going to start in Paris, and we're going to make our way down all the way to Le Havre and the Normandy beaches. And so before I give you the visual, of course, I want Paul to talk about the wines, because quite frankly, this is not necessarily a wine region. And I understand that we're bringing the wines to the ship. Can you talk a little bit about that, Paul?
Yeah, Sarah and I talked about this because, of course, the Seine is not one of the great wine rivers of France. But we did see it as an opportunity because it's not far from Champagne and not, frankly, that far from either Alsace or the Loire. And so we decided, each of these weeks, we start with a welcome reception. We'll do a seminar. We'll do 3 different seminars on each cruise segment. But on this one, we're going to do a seminar on Alsace, fabulous dessert, dry white wines, Riesling, Gewürztraminer, Pinot Blanc, Pinot Gris, some of my favorite wines in the world. And of course, they serve them with foie gras. So what could be more delicious? And then Champagne doesn't need any explanation, but we will do a seminar on Champagne. And the Loire Valley, probably the most diverse wine region in France. Everyone from bone dry oyster wines from Muscadet to richer red wines, to the wine that I poured my wife the first time we went camping, which was a Rosé d'Anjou, chilled in a snowbank in the mountains. All of those different wines made in the Loire Valley. And then each of those regions will also be the focus of a wine and food pairing dinner. So yeah, if we can't go to the wine regions from the Seine, we are bringing the wine regions to us.
I just love that. And of course, there's so many spectacular sites. We're going to start in Paris. And as we make our way down the river, again, these little villages that are right next to the river are filled with chateaus and opportunities to view. As one of my favorite parts, of course, is we get to Vernon and Giverny. I have a quick little story on this bridge that you can see there draped in the floral. The guides with AmaWaterways, they are so brilliant that if you can imagine, the guide overheard myself and some others in the motor coach on the way talking about how I've been taking water painting classes. And so we're standing there looking at this beautiful view, and all of a sudden the guy says, come over here. And so I'm thinking, you know, sure, what? And she says, no, I want you to crouch all the way down and now see the view. And all of a sudden I saw all these colors come to life because it was reflections of everything around. And she took that time because she had overheard this little comment. When you're in small groups like this, having these wonderful experiences, it can become more personal. It's something fun to experience. And of course, it's a memory that I will never forget. So now as I paint the water lilies, I think of that day. We're going to continue on through Rouen, Côte de Bacancourt as we go down. There's so much to see, lots and lots of histories here. And then, of course, we're going to get down to Le Havre and the Normandy beaches. And I have to just say quickly that AmaWaterways has such a wonderful and personal experience. They do a ceremony there because we actually get to visit the American and Canadian grave sites. And it's very touching, but it's very, very well done. And it's, again, one of those times that you'll never forget the visit. Le Havre is one of my favorite ports because it's just so colorful and fun. And that leads us back. We're going to go back to Paris, and then we're going to go across France as we begin what really is a 14-day journey as we go down the Saône and Rhône. But we're going to break it up. One's going southbound and one's going northbound, so they can be taken independently. This is kind of neat. We're going to start in Chalon-sur-Saône, and we're going to end this first 7 days in Avignon. And so, of course, we have a brilliant wine program. And Paul, why don't you go ahead and talk about this wine experience as well?
Yeah, and again, this one is with my friend Tim Gazer. So we'll be drinking some fabulous Burgundies and some Northern Rhone as well. Here it's a gimme because you can literally almost see every wine we're going to taste. You can see the vineyard from the river, and in fact, as you sail down the river, it's all sorts of fun to literally see these names spelled out on the hillside. You know, in America, we put Hollywood on a sign. In France, they put Hermitage. So yes, you see Hermitage there, and you see Saint-Joseph and Gigondas and all of these famous Rhone wines. We start in Burgundy. We get to stop in Lyon, which is the belly of France. If you want to eat, go to Lyon. Everyone asks me what there is to do in Lyon, and I say, I don't know. I've never made it past the food markets and the restaurants. There may be things to see, but I don't care. So absolutely delicious. We're going to do some reds from Burgundy, Macon, which is a wonderful, inexpensive source of beautiful Chardonnay. I guarantee you that the visit to Beaujolais will change your mind forever about that wine. And then we'll taste Hermitage, Crozes Hermitage, and some of the wines of the Northern Rhone. What a treat. What an absolute delight this whole itinerary is.
Absolutely. And again, I just want to give you some visuals as we leave from Chalon-sur-Saône. And oh, yes, I couldn't help but put that in there. We're visiting Dijon. And yes, you can actually find Dijon mustard there. But of course, we're going to visit Dijon and the Beaujolais wine region, seeing the grapes, seeing everything right there. Again, this is a very immersive experience. I love how Paul mentioned, of course, the gastronomic capital of France, which is Lyon. And I unfortunately will agree that I pretty much get as far as the markets, but there are some wonderful artistic things to see and great history as well. But you can dine your way through as we go down through Arles and we see some of the Roman architecture. It's very stunning. I love these little cobblestone streets where you can just wander and find picturesque sights. And again, a favorite as we come to Avignon, AmaWaterways does something brilliant, which is an evening. They sail where everything is illuminated at night in an illuminations cruise of Avignon. You see the bridges and everything lit up spectacularly. So of course, that leads us to our last segment, which starts down in the south in Avignon, and we work our way back up to Chalon-sur-Saône. And of course, that too has its own wine experience. And Paul, I'll let you talk about that.
I love the photo there of Avignon because, of course, in the background is the new castle of the Pope, which nobody would recognize under its English name. But of course, that's Châteauneuf-du-Pape, one of the greatest wines in the world. And of course, if you want to know why they make great wine there, all you have to know is that the Pope lived there for a while. And popes tend to like wine. Even the current Pope is a big fan, although of Argentine Malbec. He's still a great fan of wine. So put a Pope in place, you're bound to see some good vineyards pop up. And we start at Châteauneuf-du-Pape and we work our way back up. So we taste some of the wines from the Southern Rhone. This week we'll focus a little more on the white wines of Burgundy rather than the reds, and pulling out some rare and unusual wines that you might not normally see. There's a wonderful wine shop in Lyon that we work with. They're very helpful about helping us source some of these things that you wouldn't normally find. And the last time I was there, KK, I mentioned that after shopping for wine, I needed to go out and buy a jar of mustard for my wife. She's a chef and she wanted a jar of mustard. And the wine shop owner said, "Oh, allow me." And sure enough, he reached under the counter. Everybody has mustard. So he handed me some mustard.
It's fun. Again, there's so many wonderful little experiences that you're going to have on this 28-day cruise. And I want to make sure to share with you, of course, the visual. That's the Amacello as we sail there right in Avignon. And the quaint sights that you're going to see. But probably one of my favorite excursions is in Grignon. I love doing the truffle farm visit where we go out and the dogs, they hunt for the truffles. And the best part, of course, is after that experience, because you get to see some of the countryside, something away from the river. Of course, we get to taste the truffles. And I might have brought quite a bit home. I might have needed maybe an extra little space in my suitcase. Can't quite help it. It's just so much fun and so very tasty. It's a great experience. But the visuals that we'll have, right? We can't ignore the sight that all the way around us, whether it be in Vignes or Mâcon. Again, these are sights you're going to have from the river Chalon-sur-Saône. But, you know, we haven't really talked much about the experience on board. And I would love to share with you, I mentioned at the beginning, why we choose AmaWaterways. And one of the many reasons is, of course, because of the culinary program. We find that our wine enthusiasts love great food. I know I'm a foodie and most of us are. So when you think about the dining that's included, of course, you have this opportunity to experience everything included, but at a higher level. The quality is better. The farm to table food sourcing, the integrity of the quality of the food is simply exceptional. And of course, the fact that we're in a region where abundance of great quality is available, that certainly helps. Just to kind of give you a peek, this was a picture from our La Chaîne de Rôtisseurs dinner. They have one special dinner, as well as a picture from one of the regional tastings. So they do so many regional things. There was just fantastic, whether it be the seafood extravaganza or the wonderful cheeses on board. they were brilliant, and I can't wait, and it's making me hungry just to think about it. But of course, the chef's table. So there is this fantastic chef's table. It's even been compared to some of the Michelin star restaurants, this wonderful little opportunity that everyone will have on board the cruise. So when we talk about wine events, it can be many things. So sometimes people are a little curious what that means. So Paul, we're going to have, you talked about, we're having wine seminars, wine pairing dinners, wine tasting. Do you want to talk a little bit about those things and what the differences are?
Well, sure. And you left something really critical out, KK, because as we dock in 10 Hermitage, you forgot to mention that the Valrhona Chocolate Company is located there. And
How
yeah,
cool.
you can have truffles. I'm a sucker for truffles. I love the olive oil. I love the cheeses. I love the local foods. But man, that Valrhona chocolate, Tim Gazer and I came back with kilos, not pounds, kilos of chocolate. So absolutely.
I'll be there in line with you.
So we start every cruise with a reception, which is just a welcome reception, a chance for us to say hello to everyone and get a sense of who's who and what's what and what are we going to do and how we're going to talk and all of that kind of thing. We'll do some guided seminars where you'll literally be sitting, I don't want to say classroom setting because you're set out in the lounge of the ship. But we'll talk you through some of the history of the region, some of the cultural elements of the region. You know, I always say that wine, a regional wine, is very much like a cathedral. It's made by a bunch of people who've all agreed they're going to do something special. And so these regional wines have every bit as much to do with culture as the cathedral, as the local food. So we talk about how these wines came to be. I love the fact they grow Beaujolais, Gamay grape in Beaujolais, although the Duke of Burgundy, of course, famously exiled the grape from Bordeaux, from Burgundy, saying that it was a bastard grape that should never be grown in Burgundy. So they took it just a little further south, they grow it in Beaujolais, and they make delicious wines. So we'll talk about those sorts of stories. We'll do some wine and food tasting dinners. And then I want to give credit both to our own wine host contacts, but also the contacts of AmaWaterways, because when we visit some of these places, when we visit some of the chateaus in Bordeaux, the Bly Wine Festival, I didn't know about that until Ama told me about it. So they also have their own wine events that they schedule throughout these cruises where they have built up contacts. So you've got a master sommelier using his contacts. You got me using my contacts. You've got Ama using their contacts. We're going to give you wine morning to night and on the ship and off the ship, seminars, wine and food pairings, and sometimes just sitting around the lounge having a glass of wine and chatting with each other.
Well, and I even understand that we're going to have some local winery owners come on board and host some of the dinners as well as some of the seminars. I even heard that we're going to experience first growth wine.
Yeah, I heard that too.
That's really exciting.
You know, that the great Bordeaux classification of 1855, there were only 4 wines that were rated first growth. And then in the 1970s, Chateau Mouton Rothschild was elevated. I love the fact that the Baron Philippe de Rothschild refused to put his classification on the bottle when he was a second. He said, I cannot be first and I will not be second, so I will put no classification at all on my wines. But then, of course, he got elevated in 73 to a first growth. And yeah, the first growth, you know them: Chateau Latour, Chateau Lafite Rothschild, Chateau Mouton Rothschild, Chateau Aubryon, Chateau Margaux. We will be tasting some of those. We will be tasting Grand Cru Burgundy, the highest level of wine in Burgundy. And I guarantee you, we will taste some Tête de Cuvée champagnes, wines that compete with Dom Perignon and Cristal and Paul Roger's Winston Churchill Cuvée. We will taste some of the greatest wines in every region, because you can't say you've had a wine cruise unless you've at least dated some of the really great wines of the region.
Well, and I think it's really important too that we understand the level of quality of this particular and one time only. I keep saying that, and it's true. It's a one time only wine cruise. So this very specially curated cruise is going to happen, of course, in the springtime. There is so much to see, so much to do, so much to experience. But we've had some questions that I know I've heard, and I thought I would just quickly share a couple of them with you. One of them, of course, is that there's always that question, is everything about wine? And of course,
Yes.
while we while we like to think so, the reality is that there are many other options as well. So guests can choose from whether it's the, of course, they're all included, the tours. So maybe it's, again, the historical, maybe it's going and seeing the churches, seeing the museums, seeing the wonderful cultural sites. For me, for example, I had to go and see Giverny, right? So everything is still available to you in those different levels of walking that we talked about earlier. So maybe if one of you is a wine connoisseur, a wine enthusiast, and perhaps your partner is not, it's still perfectly wonderful for everyone.
Well,
Of course,
KK, if I could add one more thing, the other
Yeah.
thing that's wonderful about all these river cruises is you're docked right in the middle of town. So, for example, when we were in Avignon, there was a group that went out to see wines. My wife went out to see the truffles. I'm furious that I didn't do that. But Tim Gazer and I said, Tim, what would you like to do? And he said, I was raised a good Catholic boy. I want to go see the Pope's palace. And we just walked off the ship. We were literally 100 feet, 200 feet from the entrance of the Châteauneuf-du-Pape. And we spent all day just exploring that palace and having a wonderful time, and met back on the ship. And my wife told us what we missed on the truffle farm. We burst into tears and decided we'd have a glass of wine together.
Oh, there you go. Well, I think that settles everything. I think in Britain, we often say we want a cup of tea. When in France, you have a glass of wine.
Absolutely.
So some of the other questions that I could see, and I apologize that I can't see all the questions that are in the chat box. And so I want to make sure to share with everyone that we will make sure that we can answer as many as we can, but if not, your Expedia Cruises consultant will be able to answer all of those questions for you. And one of the questions that I saw there as it quickly went by was about staterooms. And of course, river cruises are these wonderful, intimate experiences. There's only 144 guests on the ship. And that, of course, includes all of our special wine hosts who you not only just see at the seminars or the tastings, but it's about going on an excursion and chatting about what you're seeing, or just sitting down in the lounge and chatting together. It's a really fun experience. But to learn more about the staterooms and how they work and where they are, please make sure that you speak with your Expedia Cruises consultant. They are the experts. They're going to be able to assist you and answer all of those questions for you. I would also like to mention that for anyone who can't enjoy the entire 28-day, of course, that is the best, but we will be offering segments. So 7, 14, and 21-day segments will be available starting November 15th. For those of you who are considering joining us for the entire voyage, I want to make sure that you do that right away, simply because, again, once we open it up to segments, then it's harder to get a stateroom all the way through. And we do want to make sure that you have that same stateroom. In order to request that you can join us for a segment, make sure you speak to your Expedia Cruises consultant who can put you on the wait list in advance. And we're literally going to go down and clear all of those wait lists on starting November 15th. So with that, I can't really see a lot of the questions. I want to encourage you, again, to reach out to your Expedia Cruises consultant so that we can make sure to get those questions answered for you. And we, of course, want to hope that you will join us in France. If you have your glass handy, I encourage you to raise it as we toast to the Grand France experience in April of 2023. Thanks so much for joining us.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you very much.